The following conversation is with Robert Hunt, known as the Accountability Guy, a globally ranked podcast guest, executive coach, business leader, and a co-author of Nobody Cares Until You Do. This is Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast, and I'm your host, Sid Bensalah. Today, we'll explore the power of accountability in leadership and life. Together, we'll uncover actionable insights, real stories of transformation, and how embracing accountability can inspire personal growth, better teams, and greater success. Let's dive in. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
What does accountability mean to you, and why it is such a powerful tool for growth?
There's two sides of that answer. One of it means to me personally is freedom and power. My wife and I found ourselves very serious in debt in 2019. And after years of running our business and having it acquire debt from that process, we were in a very bad place. And we learned what accountability could do for us when we truly owned it and stopped making excuses or blaming the economy or saying we can't do anything about it or waiting to hope it got better. We actually owned it and we fixed it. And that was my personal experience with the first time I really seen the contrast between accountability and being a victim. And I have seen that for years through the groups that I run. I run business groups for CEOs and business owners here in DFW, Texas. And I've watched those people who are truly accountable have a better life. And I've seen the power that it comes with accountability. And then I've watched people who aren't accountable. People who make excuses and blame and say they can't do anything about it or wait and hope it gets better, and it is worse. So between those two journeys, I am a huge proponent of accountability and what it can really do for you.
Interesting. What's a common misconception people have of accountability, and how do you address it in your coaching?
Yeah, one of the things is we always say no one can hold anyone accountable. We say that phrase a lot, but it's a misnomer. I can't hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable if you want to. And as a business owner or a coach on a team, you can't hold your team accountable. You can create a world where accountability rules, where people want to be accountable, where you yourself are accountable, therefore they watch you do it and they mimic that. But in most cases, we have people who are not being accountable, and that's the model they set for the whole team or the company. And so there's a misunderstanding of what it means to be accountable. The simplest definition of accountability is you own it. It's yours. And we don't do that well as a world, as a society. There's an awful lot of people forgetting that your actions have consequences. And take, for example, social media. I can say horrible things about you, and you're not going to drive over to my house and punch me in the mouth. I just do it and get away with it. And if I don't like my job or my company, I can leave. I can quit. If I don't like my marriage, I get divorced. If I don't like my family, I just leave them. And so we've just lost this art of owning it and whatever it is. And the other side of that is I think a lot of people think they're really being accountable when the best they're doing is being responsible. If you're on a team, what's your responsibility? You show up for practice. You show up for the game. You're supposed to. That's the responsibility. Accountability would be you practice. You learn the plays. You discipline your body and your mind so you're at the top of your abilities the day you show up. You look around and see what else you could help with and encourage other people. You are accountable to what? The result you want when you play, the victory, the growth, all those things is what you're driving. You have to own that. But a lot of times we just show up and we think, well, I'm here. That's not the same as being accountable. And so we've got a false sense of what that looks like.
Yeah. Let's talk about your book. Can you share a story or two behind your book, Nobody Cares Until You Do? What inspired you to write it?
Yeah, back in 2019, my beautiful wife, Kathy, and I were $90,000 in debt. And we had been running the business since 2013. And every year there was always some shortage, and I never lived within my means. So if I didn't have enough money, I would just put it on a credit card and let it stack up and owe the government taxes for the last year that I didn't have, so I'd owe them. And bit by bit, it grew and grew and grew. And so in 2019, we had $90,000 in debt, not including the house or the cars. And it was haunting us. I didn't realize it till I got out of it, how bad the emotion, how much stress I was under, but it was there. And so we looked at our lives and we said, are we living the life that we really want? And the answer was no. And we realized the reason was us. And we weren't owning it. We kept blaming the economy. We kept blaming customers. I was angry at the franchise I worked with. I was making excuses. I'm not a good salesperson. I would say there's things I can't do. And then we just waited and hoped every year that it would get better. It never did. So we decided that we needed to own this. This was our decisions that led to where we are, and we're going to own this. And the way to own it was we sold our house, and we took the money from that house and we paid off all our debt. And we moved into this house that we rent today, where we are living in peace and debt free. And we started over. And the peace that I had when I got debt free, we paid it all off a month later after we moved in here. I had no debt. It was wicked cool. And I'd forgotten what it felt like to not have stress and worry and fear. I would get up every day and think, if I work my butt off all day, I'm still screwed. I'm never going to get out of debt. But when I got rid of it and I looked back at the way I used to live, I realized what a trap I was in. I was playing the role of a victim, saying I can't do anything about it. I just didn't want to do what I needed to do. So we learned that lesson the hard way, and we saw how accountability set us free. It gave us power and hope and peace. And so we started looking at everything in our lives, our marriage, our faith, our relationship with our kids, everything under the lights of, hey, what would it look like to be truly accountable in this and own it? And that's how we live these days.
Robert, I need to ask you, how is you sleeping now?
Oh,
maybe it
I
sounds
sleep
stupid,
great.
but I sleep great.
I'll tell you, one thing I do is I dream. And during those years, for the longest time, I had no dreams. Some nightmares, but no dreams. And after about 3 or 4 months after that was done, I started having these dreams. And I was talking to my friend who's a doctor, and I said, I think I'm having like mental issues. I'm having these crazy dreams. And I never dreamed before. He says, well, you never got into a deep sleep. And he's right, because my solution for all my problems was one more bourbon and one more bowl of ice cream and one more soothing my pain and my lifestyle that just let me escape. And then you go to bed with a big sugar belly that doesn't help you get sleep. But I also had a lot of stress. And even though I had faith that God was going to take care of me, I didn't really see it happening. And after a while, I just gave up hope. And I still know God loves me. I still know he has a plan for my life. But I didn't think it was ever going to work out, that I'd get out of this problem. So the stress I was carrying was affecting my sleep. And I sleep good, man. I sleep like a baby now.
Fantastic. What was the defining moment in your journey, Robert, as a leader and a coach?
I think it was that point where we got to the place where we said, wait, nobody cares until we care enough to do something about it. That's why we call the book Nobody Cares. Because you're going to get to a place in your life where you look at where you're at and you say, I'm not satisfied with blank. Some part of your life that you don't like it a lot. And then you'll finally get to the place where you say, look, I can make excuses, I can blame, I can say I can't do anything about it, I can wait and hope that it'll get better, or I can realize nobody cares whether you're fat, broke, unhappy with your marriage, miserable at your job, unless you care enough to do something about it. And usually it's at that place where the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you got to go that you'll change. And that's what it was for us. The idea of selling our house sucked. We had a beautiful house, movie theater upstairs. It was huge. We couldn't afford it. It was nice, but we couldn't afford it. And the pain of where we were had affected how we looked at every bit of our life. And we were done. We were just done with it. And so some people, when they get to that place of pain, they ruin themselves. Other people, when they get to that place in pain, they improve themselves. And that's your choice. Sadly, people take out their stress and anger and frustration on other people. But if you're at a place today where you're not happy with the life you're living, you have the power to do something about it. And the effort it took for me to go from being a victim, where I blamed everything and said I can't do anything about it, and wallowed in my misery, and the effort to go become victorious was hard, but it's way better than staying as a victim.
Yeah. Robert, you've mentioned that greatness evolves as life changes. How has your definition of greatness shifted over the years?
I think we're all on a journey of constantly getting better. What's more complicated is that the bar keeps moving and the world keeps changing. And when I was younger, greatness was making money. That's all that mattered. How much money can I make? And then when I get the money, what can I do with it? I got divorced in 1998. Came home from work one day and the house was empty and my kid and my wife were gone. And I, at that moment, realized that my career didn't matter at all. And the money didn't matter because shortly after that, they started taking half of it every paycheck I got. So I started thinking about life in a different way. And over the years, I've really looked at what do I really want my life to look like? And so greatness is doing the best of your ability and leaving the results to God. Because you can't control the economy. You think the people who had a business that started the month that COVID shut down the world planned that into their plan? And all the things that go on, there's so much out of our control. So greatness is doing the very best you can and being proud of that, but knowing that it's not all going to work out and that God determines whether or not you have this or that, or customers who like you, or someone else doesn't come in and compete, or a team that's stronger. There's so many variables that go into it, but you should be proud of doing the very best you can. Yeah. That's what drives me.
Really interesting. Why do you think so many people quite often settle for optimizing a life they don't want instead of chasing the one they do?
Yeah, it's totally true. We always talk about it. Stop trying to optimize a crappy life. Step back and create the one you really want. That's why in the book that we wrote, we put a satisfaction assessment at the beginning. And we want you to just declare to yourself honestly in these two wheels, business and personal, how is your life? And if you could really imagine and say, what do I want my life to look like? What did my marriage look like the day I got married? What did I think my life was going to be like when the first kid was born? How did I view what my career and my business would look like compared to where it is today? And if you're honest, I mean, really painfully honest, and you compare where you are to where you want to be, you can see where you're not satisfied. And then the question is, so what are you going to do about it? And sadly, what people do is they say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just stuck in a horrible marriage. I just have a horrible boss. I can't do this. I can't. But a lot of times when we say I can't, we really mean I won't.
Is it laziness, or is it the fear of trying something new, change, just the notion of change that scares people?
I'm going to say lazy. And I know that probably sounds contrary, that people would say that fear is what holds us back. But we're really not that fearful. We just don't have a plan. Mike Tyson famously said, everyone has a plan till someone punches you in the mouth, right? And when you come up with a plan when you're young, and I'm going to have this life and do this, and then things come and get in the way, all you need is a plan. And we self-defeat. That creates the spirit of fear, but really is just lacking a plan. If I get lost somewhere, it can be very nerve-wracking just to be lost. But if I open up my phone and it says, oh, you're here, go down 2 blocks and turn left, you'll be there. The plan is the solution that takes the worry away. So I think for us, we didn't have a plan because we only allowed the plan to exist inside this area of our life. I'll do this, but I won't sell the house. I'll do this, but I won't adjust my lifestyle. I'll do this, but I won't change my behaviors. So if you only give yourself this much room to create a plan, you can't really create a plan. But if you say everything's up for grabs, including selling my house and starting over, then you really have the opportunity to create a really good plan. And that conquers fear. A plan is way better than fear.
Yeah. What's the first step, in your opinion, Robert, someone can take to realign their life with their vision of greatness?
I think the first part of it is vulnerability. We don't like to be vulnerable to people. We put up walls. We pretend that life is all good. You ever notice that someone asks you how things are going and they just keep walking? They're not even listening for the answer. How you doing? But I think we've become, after a while, we just stop being real. And we put a lot of happy posts on social media that say how great our dinner was and how great our life is and how great everything is, when inside we're dying. And so I think if you're really going to have a plan to do something, you got to invite people into it. You can't have accountability and avoid. And so when I coach business owners and we talk about the struggles they have running their business, one of the things we agree to do is put it in writing. Because when it's in writing, other people see what you say you're going to do. And then you have the opportunity to live up to that expectation. You create your own world of accountability. But if you don't invite people in, and you're not vulnerable about what's going on, nobody can help you. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody can cheer you along or remind you that, hey, I thought you were going to slow down and spend more time with the family or whatever. That requires that vulnerability that really actually helps us get it done.
Yeah, yeah. Robert, when you think about leadership, how do you define it? What does being a leader truly mean to you?
We always talk about we manage the process and we lead the people. So managers look over your shoulder and tell you you're doing it wrong. Leaders create a vision of what they want you to do and get out of your way. But we have to equip them to be good leaders. We have to equip them to follow it and then turn into a great leader. So I think great leaders are the kind of people who are constantly learning and growing in what they do. Great leaders are the ones who are okay with taking risks. They make decisions. Mm-hmm. No matter what role you play in life, you're a leader to somebody. You're a leader to your kids, your community. You're a leader at work. Even if you're not in charge, people watch what you do. And you could be the lowest person in the company, but if you're full of anger and dissension, you're leading in a negative way. Every one of us contributes to the final result. And so I think the leaders that I've seen that really rock it, the ones who do great, they're constantly learning. They are making decisions because we need to make decisions, good or bad. At least you're making a decision. And then you own it. That's the third thing is you make a decision. You got to own that decision. And then they're pouring into their people. They're creating leaders instead of creating followers. And then, not to say we don't need followers. We do need followers who become great leaders. They start by following first, and they become a leader in their actions. But we want to create leaders who will lead other people, who will be willing to follow them, and not a bunch of followers who just blindly follow us and don't think. And then they're constantly driving the results. They're driving the outcome they want by modeling the culture, by modeling the way we treat one another, by modeling the passion behind our efforts. We model this out for other people to follow.
Mm. Do you believe leaders are made, born, or perhaps a mix? I've been asking this question quite often with various guests.
Yeah. I don't know. I've seen cases where people grow into their leadership. I think that there certainly is some people who have a character that just loves to be out in front and take risks. One of the assessments we use often is the DISC assessment that talks about your needs. Some people need to lead. They have a need inside of them to be, let's go do this.
What is
let's
it?
Do this.
Robert?
And just a character. It's part of there are things that we find significance in. I need to be loved. I need people to say, hey, you were great on that podcast. That makes me feel significance. My wife needs to be heard. Other friends I have, they just need to conquer stuff. They see something and they want to be the best at whatever that. They see something, they want to go conquer it. They're driven and it's just inside them. I think God creates us all for the role that we play. And so just living out the person you are is smart. But no matter what your needs are, you can still be a great leader by putting in the discipline and the skills that leadership requires. So if you're a mom and you stay home and raise children, you're leading those children. And how you lead them, you can develop that by understanding that your actions have consequences, your words matter, that you're modeling for these children. And you're leading the home and you're leading the community and your friends. We're all leading someone. But I think you develop that to be a good leader. It takes effort.
Okay. Ego can be both strength and a weakness. How do you help leaders balance confidence and humility?
Not well. My clients have killer egos, and they are just all over. But we always say ego's not bad. It's ego that's left unchecked that is bad. And I would say my clients have a lot of ego. They're also kind and loving, but they know that they got it down. They know that they know what they're doing. So we've given up the quest to rein in ego. What we've learned is to have a check and balance on ego. So we do things because we know we have ego. We invite people in. Back to vulnerability. One of the traps about ego is that you stop listening to people around you and you only bring people who affirm whatever you want to do. So in order to have ego checks, you have to do certain things to keep you from running crazy in that. And that vulnerability allows us to let people to challenge us. We invite people who will give us a contrarian perspective. Now, the ego inside of us still wants to go, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But we create as Ray Dalio called it in his book Principles, an idea meritocracy, where people who have proven that they know what they're talking about get more credit than other people who don't. But we still listen and we still value the input. So having an ego is not a problem. Everyone's got an ego. Celebrate your ego. That's fine. But create a check and balance in that. There's a cool book, Ego versus EQ. And Jill something wrote it. Oh, Jen. Ego versus EQ. And Jen talks about the checks that we put in place for your ego. And your emotional intelligence is one of the things that will help you balance that out. So it's a great read.
What role do openness and self-awareness play in effective leadership?
It comes back to vulnerability. You know, if we're going to really be our best, we've got to be open and listen to people. We require in our groups 3 things to help you be the best version of yourself. Radical transparency, that's that vulnerability, radical open-mindedness, and then thoughtful disagreement. We get up in each other's business. We challenge each other. Someone says something, we say, no, I vehemently disagree with that position. But we do it out of respect because we love each other. We don't want to see you go down the drain. We don't want to see you make a bad decision. So because we love each other, we challenge each other. But it's that radical transparency that doesn't try and look good and will say, well, here's my plan, but I'm not really sure how I want to do it. You allow people to speak into your life. And then you're open. We always say, listen long enough to know that they're right. A lot of times we listen to get ready to argue against what they're saying. And we want you to listen long enough to know that they're right. So you really soak it in and look from their perspective and think, why would they think that? And it helps you open your own mind to the options that you may have been missing. And then thoughtful disagreement. Engage in conversation, not in a threatening way, but thoughtful with you know what you're talking about. You've done your research. You have experience with it. And if you don't know what you're talking about, don't say anything. Ask questions. It's far better to ask questions and be thought of as an idiot than to open your mouth and prove you are.
Yeah. We talked earlier about accountability, leadership. What's the practical example of a leader successfully infusing accountability in their organizations and teams?
Numbers don't lie. If you're going to be vulnerable and you're going to be transparent, you put things in writing. This is where we're going. We're currently doing $30 million a year. We want to get to $32 million next year. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. Here's the steps. Here's the details. Who's involved. Here's the timeline. Go. And then we measure along the way. And we create checks and balances so we're going along the way so we don't get too far down the road and find it's the wrong direction. And so we have a common journey that we're on together because we've been open and transparent about what we want to do. A lot of leaders don't know what they're doing. And they don't know what they want to do. They're just kind of reacting to whatever comes their way. But if you can create a plan, other people can start thinking ahead for you. Well, if we're going to do this, we better watch our cash. If we're going to do this, we need a new technology. If we do this, we need to get more people. They can start bringing solutions that are necessary for your success. But leaders don't want people getting up in their business because they don't really have a plan. They haven't really thought it all the way through. We made 30 million. I just want more. Let's just go. And then you end up making all kinds of wasted time on things that don't matter. You've got limited time and resources. You need to prioritize against the goal. So I think if you're really going to get things done, you got to be very transparent and vulnerable and communicate it in writing with your team and then track it against those numbers.
Good. Let's shift gear and talk about the satisfaction assessment. So, Robert, I took your satisfaction assessment in preparation for this episode, and I can tell you, it was such an eye-opening experience to see where I'm thriving and where I have room for improvement, and thank you for suggesting it.
Yeah. The cool part about this assessment is it's pretty easy. It takes you a couple minutes, right? Are you happy with your health? Yes or no? So, I'm really happy, so I'm up at an 8, or I'm not happy, I'm at a 2. And you score all the personal and all the professional, and then you got a little report there. And then the cool thing about it, because of all these things we just talked about, you can take that report now and you can show it to someone you love and say, here's what my life looks like. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm not satisfied. And here's why. And then when you learn about the traps that hold us back as victims, if your answer is, well, it's because, Oh, I can't do, well, I didn't know. And all these things that you would say in response to why you're not satisfied and the cause of that, you'll find that most of them are a victim mindset. But in reality, it's your choice. If I'm fat, it's because I eat donuts. That's not a mystery. I can't blame my mom or my genes. I could just say, look, you eat donuts. That's why you're fat. And we don't blame anybody. Well, my parents didn't love me, so I ate food. And that's nonsense. So we have to catch ourselves and go, okay, wait. Nobody cares. Stop your
Yes.
excuses. Stop your blame. Own it and now do something. So you have declared to yourself where you're not satisfied, and you can go and look, am I making excuses? Am I living as a victim? And then I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, nobody cares. And I'm going to start a plan. And the rest of it comes easy. When we decided we weren't happy living the life that we were at in 2019, it's not hard to think about how to sell your house. You hire a real estate agent, you clean it up, and you sell it. This is not a complicated process. But the emotion behind that was huge. We'd lived there 6 years. We raised our family there. Our friends had been there for holidays and parties, and all that was going away. And my wife finds a lot of her identity in her home. It's a house. I don't care. But for her, it's a big deal. So the doing of it was hard, very hard. But we had a plan. We knew we could do this. And then we just had to work towards that. And once you decide what you want, plans actually, they appear very quickly. When you get over the victim mindset and you think there's nothing you can do, everything's an option. Anything could happen as long as you're having a mind saying, I'm going to fix this one way or another. You'll find that the solution just appears.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because it's exactly the experience I had with the satisfaction assessment. Because you are ready to answer the questions and then you pause a little bit and you say, shall I reflect a little bit, take a little bit of time and then answer? Or shall I answer exactly, let's say, on the go? And I like what you said, Robert, is the minute you get the results. Maybe one thing I didn't like, it's if you didn't like your results, you can retake the test. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Oh, that's really helpful because people, the first time they do it, they think someone's going to see it, so they don't give an honest
But that's
answer.
the thing. And you said it. You said it clearly. Stop playing the victim.
Right.
Instead,
Right.
take accountability and say, okay, today, that's me. It's like a dashboard of a vehicle. That's me. What can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do to improve
Right.
this or to improve that side? Or, I think to summarize it, when there is a will, there is a way. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't believe lies that keep you as a victim, every single thing you face today can get better. Everything. It may be hard. It was hard for us to sell our house and start over. It may be embarrassing, but you can do it.
One thing I've noticed, when it comes to accountability, we have this kind of mindset that always we need to find the victim, the reason to basically everything. If let's say kids are not doing good at school or for whatever subject or topic, we point the finger at the teacher all the time, and we try to cocoon or we try to shield the kids. Don't worry, it's okay, and things like that. And I think this mentality has grown.
We spend a lot of time blaming people, and let's say there's blame. Let's say it's legit. They didn't do something. Okay, now the question is, so what?
Yeah.
Now what am I going to do? Because if I want to stay and blame people and be pissed off at them, then my life is just miserable. Maybe your parents were horrible. Maybe you didn't get a chance to go to the kind of school that other people got to go to. Maybe someone was a horrible boss and you lost your job. Okay, so what? So you want to just be miserable and blame people and be unhappy the rest of your life? Or what can you do about it? And that's the place where we play the victim role. Well, there's nothing I can do. Yeah, there is. Go get another job. Well, there's no jobs available. Go find one. There's no one's hiring. Get a different degree. No one's hiring anywhere. Move to another state. Move to another country. Everything that you want to say that you can't do, someone could come up with something. And if you're not willing to think of that of your own, your mind is closed and you're living like a victim. There is always a solution for everything. And it may, like I said, it may be hard. It may be really hard, but it's also really hard to live life as a victim. And I don't think you should have to do that. I think you should be able to enjoy a life where you pursue what you really want, even if it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about effective delegation. Many leaders struggles with delegation. Why it is so difficult for someone and how overcome it?
I think we talked about it a little bit earlier about how when you have a leader, they don't know what they want. They can't get you to do it because they can't articulate what they want. So they just say you keep doing it wrong, and it's frustrating for everyone. There are 4 things that are required for effective delegation: clear and compelling communication. If you're not clear about what you need and it's not compelling, they won't do it. And the simplest example is I work with a lot of construction companies. Wear a hard hat when you're on the site. You should wear a hard hat. It's clear. Everyone knows that. But they don't do it. It's hot. It doesn't feel right. I don't like it. Until someone gets a nail through their head or a beam hits them and knocks them out cold. The compelling side is what people don't buy into it on. So even though it's clear, it has to be clear and compelling. It has to be enough that they understand what that looks like. Then once you've done that, you've got to give them the tools to do it right. One of the tools would be, for the hard hat example, give them a hard hat that actually fits right. Give them one that is designed to really protect them and feels right and is comfortable to wear all day. So you have to give them the right tool or they won't do it. And then give them the training. Let them practice it for a while. Make it part of the culture where everybody wears it. And we see over time that they know how to do it. They know why they're doing it. They have the right hard hat. They've trained to do it. Then once you've given those 3 things, then you have the opportunity to see accountability. Accountability is the 4th thing. But people can't be accountable to something if they don't know why they're doing it or what they're supposed to do. If they haven't had the tools to do it right and the training to do it, you can't expect them to be accountable. We as leaders want people to be accountable. I gave it to you. You're accountable to it. I didn't know what you wanted. I didn't understand what I was doing. And my tools aren't like your tools. You know where this stuff's at. So we're not setting them up to win, and then we're angry at the results. So then we just stop delegating. I'll do it myself. Forget it. I'll just do it myself. And that's why leaders don't delegate, because it's too hard, because they're not doing it right. If you delegate like that, and you got to set up some rules for engagement that say, hey, if I give it to you, you got to do it on time, every time, never, ever let it go. Things like that you add to that equation. It works every time. And I teach my clients how to delegate effectively so they're building teams that are empowered to lead because they know what's going on and they have the ability and the freedom to do it well.
What makes your CEO peer groups unique and how they have impacted members' lives?
I think what makes ours unique, because there's a lot of peer groups in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is I truly love my clients. And I think because God has loved me so much, it's easy for me to love them in a real way. And they feel loved. And they love each other. And love seems weird. Why would you talk about love in a business sense? I'll tell you why. Because love gets rid of all fear. And there's a lot of fear out there in the world. It's the unknown. It's the things you can't control, you don't anticipate. When you love someone, you're patient and kind and gentle with them, and you're standing up for them and fighting for them. That kind of love empowers people. And my leaders are under a lot of pressure. They got a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress that comes their way. But having a group of people who genuinely have their back, who genuinely love them, has given them hope and encouragement and the power to press on through COVID. When the world was shut down and everything was crazy, we met weekly because it was like, well, we couldn't meet in person. We had to do Zoom calls. But we what did we do? Send them home, bring them back, make them wear a mask, don't wear a mask, get the shot, don't get the shot. I mean, it was just craziness. But we were there for each other. And it was those times where people are going through a divorce, their kids got cancer, their company's being sued, they're facing bankruptcy, they can't make payroll. All these things that go on, we're there. We are there, got their back. And I think that gives them hope to press on.
Yeah. Let's try to talk about accountability and what we spoke earlier within the sports industry. How do principles of accountability apply to athletes, coaches, or professionals in high-stakes environments?
I think those team sports are the most places where you could find accountability, because you could have someone who says, well, I'm not Michael Jordan, so I'm just going to sit here and complain about things. But, you know, Scottie Pippen was the coolest unifying force on that
He's my
team.
favorite.
He was the captain. That guy was glue. Could you imagine playing under a superstar like Michael Jordan? I mean, have you ever read the book, The Captain Class?
No, I didn't.
The Captain Class was written by the guy who was the editor for the Wall Street Journal sports section. And he did research and found all these captains that were on these famous teams, the hockey team for the U.S. and the Russian one that in the 84 when they lost, the Russians lost to the American team. Tells a story about the guy flying back on the plane to Russia, and he hears some general talking smack about the team, and he gets up and starts punching the guy in the face.
Oy.
He knows he's going to live in Siberia the rest of his life, but he's like, you will not talk about our team like that.
Wow.
That wasn't the coach. That wasn't the superstar. That was a dude who was the captain. And they're all throughout these famous team stories where people who were the captain that were the glue. And so I think when it comes to accountability, you got to create a world where people want to be accountable. I don't know if they did enough push-ups that day. I don't know if they ran all the laps they're supposed to run. I don't know if they're learning the plays. I can never hold anyone accountable, but I can create a world where they care, where they feel loved and respected. And this is family to them, and they give it all they have. And then they are self-accountable. They are accountable to the effort, not just the result. They don't just show up. They think about it. They read the plans. They practice at home. They get a good night's sleep. They don't stay out partying or watching Netflix till 2 a.m. They get rest and drink water. All that stuff has to be done on their own so that they can come to the game in the best shape possible. You can't mandate or control that, but you can create a world where they want to be accountable to the things that they proactively do to get the best result later on. And that's when you model that. You create that for your team by casting that vision. You're creating a vision that they can get excited about, that they all want to be accountable because they want to go where you're taking them.
Yeah. What parallels do you see between leadership in sports, military, and business?
I think isn't leadership leadership? I think there's bad leaders in everything. There's bad leaders in business and in military and sports. There's bad leaders in churches. Everyone's got bad leaders and good leaders. I think we think though too often it's someone else's job to lead. My favorite version of leadership is servant leadership, where you genuinely put other people first. You genuinely care about them. And you see these guys on the team, they're the cheerleader who just goes, come on, guys, we can do this. And they stick up for other people and they help them. And they're there to be the person who doesn't complain and does the best they can. But that's in work or military or sports. Everyone has bad leaders and good leaders. If you're going to be in charge, you have the opportunity to create a standard that other people rise up to. And it's your opportunity to also be horrible. So you get to choose. And there's no skill required in being a good leader. It's just the willingness to do it. You can get better by learning stuff. You can practice it. You can learn techniques. But even little kids on the playground know how to be a great leader. They didn't take any classes. You know that one kid that everybody's following around doing whatever they do. There was no class for them. They just knew that they wanted to do something and people wanted to follow them because they were the guy. They had it on top. They knew they were going somewhere. Every one of us has the opportunity to be a great leader or a miserable leader. It's up to you.
What you were pinpointing at, it's basically leadership styles. And from the best leaders, I believe that a mix of accountability and empathy, it's vital.
And empathy allows us to be able to understand, and we have to know our teams. Remember, a good leader is pouring into their people, but you got to know what's going on. If I care about someone enough to help them work on the things that are haunting them, they show up at work with more energy, more clarity. If they got a miserable marriage and a lot of heavy finances and their kids are in trouble all the time and they're angry at the world, how do you think they show up at work? They're not a good team member. They're certainly not a good leader. So you as a leader need to know enough about your people to care for them. And empathy allows us to take the time to say, how you doing? I can tell you're under a lot of stress. You've been barking at people, leader. What's going on? And then a lot of leaders say, I don't have time for that stuff. Get your personal life together and come to work. Well, my personal life is work. I am me at work. I'm me at home. And if I've got a kid that's being arrested for drugs and a wife who's angry at me and my finances are haunting me, I'm going to be me here. And so if you really care about your people, you proactively create ways to care for them. And don't just say, we have a employee counselor. You can call them up if you feel like you're going to commit suicide. Know about them enough to get them to a place that they don't want to commit suicide. Help them by preemptively teaching good financial stewardship. Have someone come in and teach your employees how important it is to have a budget and to live modestly and to save so that they don't get haunted by the weight of their finances. Have someone come in and talk about a healthy marriage or relationships. Have them talk about diet. You know, just being healthy in your body brings your energy level up at work so you can get more done. Why don't we have someone who's a health expert come teach good health principles? All the things that make us a good human, if you're a leader, you have the opportunity to purposely create those to help us be our best.
Yeah. Robert, what do you hope your legacy as the accountability guy will be?
I hope that people know I loved them. That's a big deal to me. I live a great life. I got a God who loves me and a wife who loves me and my kids love me. I got friends. I'm swimming in love. I want my clients to know I love them. And I love them enough to say the things that are hard to say, to challenge them and to speak truth in their life. And I love them enough to stick with them when they're mean to me because they're in a bad mood. And that happens. And I want them to know they're loved. I think anybody could run a class or do a group or do a presentation. But I hope that I'm remembered that I felt like Robert Hunt really loved me. That would be a cool legacy.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting their accountability journey today?
Do it today. Don't be lazy. This is the year of intentional living in our groups. We've just been through 4 years of crap. It's just exhausting. And maybe with the change of government, there's a little more positive feel today. But the reality is we're just all tired. But we're fighting the limited resources in time, money, people, energy. We've got to be intentional. And one of the things that I'm finding people are doing is we're being lazy. Mm-hmm. We know we should do something and we're not doing it. And so if you struggle to do the things you know you should do, be vulnerable, invite someone in, go find a group, go start your own group. Invite 5 or 6 other business leaders together to come together and be totally open and transparent and tell them what you want to do and learn from them and get encouragement. Don't tell me there's no group. Create your own. Build transparency in your business with your relationships and your life and your finances, all those things. Just don't be lazy. Do it today. Start today. It's easy.
And stop the blame game.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book and the process of writing a book, which is fascinating and it does interest the listeners. So I checked your book. I didn't order it yet. I will. Your book is highly rated on Amazon, which you co-authored with
Salem
Thyne.
Thyne.
Yeah?
Yeah. Great guy.
What was the hardest part of writing the book, Nobody Cares Until You Do? Was it organizing the ideas, doing the research, finding the time to write, or setting up the right environment?
I think the hardest part was committing to do it. I think once we decided in our hearts we were going to do this, we created an environment where we allowed ourselves to be accountable to what we wanted to do. We'd been talking about this since I met him. He was in one of my CEO groups, and he had shared the accountability ladder, which is out there on the internet. And I started using that to teach my clients about accountability. It's a really great visual. And it became common language that we would use in our meetings, in our groups. It was a very good visual and a very good conversation. And he kept saying, we should write a book on this. He actually said, you should write a book on this. And I go, yeah, that's not going to happen. And so after about a year of it, he kept saying that. He said, well, I'll help you. I'll do it with you. So then we'd go meet at his office and we'd outline things. We'd write stories. We'd capture ideas. But man, we're busy. We got marriage and kids and work. He had 2 companies he was running, and I had this one, and I'm involved in all kinds of other things. So we just finally said, listen, if we're going to own this thing, we're going to have to hire someone to do it. So we got a publisher. But it was a commitment. It was a lot of money. Did you know there's 480 books a day that are released into the public? A day. Wow. So my book's invisible. It's in a sea of books. I'm a drop of water in a sea of books. And, even though we wrote it in 22, if you don't get out and do podcasts and talk about it and promote it, nobody's going to know about this.
But the comments on Amazon, they are all 5 stars.
Yeah, there's some guy who didn't like it. I got it's like a 4.9 or something, but I don't know. I don't care. You're never going to please everybody. But I think it's an effort.
Yeah. And what was the hardest? The start of the book, or setting the tone, or crafting the perfect ending? What's the hardest part, Robert?
Yeah, just committing. It's like any journey. What do they say? The hardest part of the journey is the first step. Just getting started. And when we resolved in our hearts we're going to do this, then we committed. And finding a publisher and getting this set up and paying them a lot of money. The rest of it really actually was pretty easy because we'd already mapped the whole thing out. It just needed someone to do the work. We're not going to sit there and type 1,400 words a month. It's just not going to happen.
And the editing process, was it easy?
Yeah, we had a ghostwriter who did a lot of work
Okay.
with us because Samuel and I have two very different vibes and words we would use. And so we had a ghostwriter who took our words and our thoughts and our stories and melted them together. She did a phenomenal job of being a voice that felt like both of us having a conversation. It was really good. It's expensive, but we're business owners. We spend money to grow.
Yes.
That's a business owner invests money for what they want to get. Our desire out of this is to change people's lives. We're not going to retire or make money on this. I got to sell 50,000 copies to break even. And I think so far we've sold about 6,000 copies. We're never going to make our money back, but that's okay. If I change one person's life and they are accountable and they have the life they really want, I'm happy.
And Robert, what was the moment like when you finally decided the book was ready to share with the world?
It was awesome. We'd been working on this for so long, thinking about it, talking about it, and then working with the publisher. It was weird to hold it in my hand. And when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, I said that. All these things that you forget about. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It came together so well. And we did a session in September 22 when we launched the book. We got invited to speak at a conference, and we had people coming up and getting copies of the book, and they would sit and read the first chapter and come back, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is exactly what I need. And I was like, oh man, I'm starting to cry. And it just gave me so much joy to think we're gonna change people's lives through this.
Fantastic. Now it's time for our lightning round. You ready for speedy Q&A?
I am.
Let's do it. What's one habit you swear by for staying focused?
I turn off everything when I'm working. Phone, my Outlook doesn't ding. I don't have any distractions. I'm easily distracted. So I turn off everything. I even had a clicking clock in the hallway that I could hear clicking too loud. I had to take the batteries out of it when I was working on a project recently. So I get everything that can interrupt me, and I don't let anything interrupt me. And it gives me focus, but I do it twice as fast.
Can you multitask?
No, nobody can. People who think they can are deceived.
I think women, they are better than us.
Multitasking is doing one thing 100%, then flipping to another thing and doing it 100%, then flipping back to the other thing 100%. You can't do two things 50-50. You can only do one thing 100%. So actually you're doing multiple things at the same time poorly. And so there's all kinds of studies and all kinds of things that have proven this out. And there's all kinds of exercises I could take you through. And I have done that before. But the idea is take whatever you want to do it well, and then go to the next thing. Yeah.
A book that had the most significant impact on your life?
I know this sounds trite, but I would say the Bible. When I understand the Word of God, I am loved by God. To me, that is just bizarre. And so the more I read the Bible, I read it every year, I read it all the time. To me, I'm just learning and understanding God more and more. It has changed my life. That is hands down the coolest book I ever read.
Great.
And by the way, if you've read the Bible and you don't like it, you're reading it wrong. So don't give up. Go learn some more. Have someone else help you, because reading the Bible is very cool. And it has amazing wisdom and insight that you should.
By the way, my score when it came to spirituality on the assessment test was average.
Oh, okay. And if you're satisfied with that today, it says you are, because if you're in the middle, you're not super happy, you're not sad, you're average, then it's okay. And when you do the score, you prioritize what you want to work on first, and just be honest with yourself. Maybe I'll get my health lined up, and then I'll work on my spirituality. But as long as you're doing it because you want to do it, it's cool.
Yeah. What's your favorite way to unwind after a busy day or a week?
I love being with my wife. She's fun. I just like to be able to hang out with her and sit and talk. And sometimes we go play pickleball, or sometimes we watch a movie, but I just like being with my wife.
Great. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. All day.
What is the most inspiring person you've ever met?
Ben Randolph. Ben Randolph is a CEO in my groups. He has 5 kids, and he builds his business around his life. And so he told me one time, I have purposely chosen to build all of my companies around my life, my family. And he took his family away for a year and traveled the world. 5 kids are from 15 all the way down to
Wow.
3. They just unplugged and traveled the world and reunited their family again. And it was just, who does that? And he just put business on hold, let other people run it. And he's got 3 companies and he's got all these investments and he just took off. And so don't miss the opportunity to live the life you want. That's Ben Randolph's. Yeah, he's my hero for that.
Great. Failure you're grateful for?
Now, getting into debt for $90,000 was definitely a suck, and that was a failure. I'm grateful because it pushed me to the place where I learned about accountability. But I wouldn't want anyone to have to go through that. But I did learn, it was the catalyst that finally broke me to say, okay, am I going to live my life as a victim? It now makes me think of everything through the lens of how do I own that and what does it look like? So, yeah, the failure of my finances is the one I'm thankful for.
Favorite sport to watch or play?
Football. Oh, American football. I should clarify. It's not
Which team?
Dallas Cowboys. Even though they can't seem to win, I still love them.
And it's been since ever?
A long time. No, a long time. Oh, that I've been a fan or since they won?
Since you've been a fan.
Liked them as a kid. A hardcore fan when I moved here in 2010.
Okay.
Because I live in Dallas. So you got to be a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. Your dream travel destination?
Oh, I want to go to somewhere where it's water's so blue and the sand is so white and you can swim in it and not get bugs and not get shark bitten. And I grew up in Southern California on the beach and the water's freezing cold and it's dirty and tumultuous and there are quite a few sharks along the coast. And so it's kind of all that. I want to go somewhere where I could just be in this tropical place. I don't even know what it's called yet, but we're going to go there someday.
If you could have a dinner with 3 people, living or dead, be?
I'd like to hang out with James Taylor. I think he's cool. I've always liked his music. I thought George Bush, the second one, was a cool dude. I read it, Turning Points, and just about how he just owned his own. He's a dude who was accountable. He was an alcoholic. He said, I'm an alcoholic. I got to stop. And he just quit. And he owned his junk, and he's lived that way ever since and made some decisions I didn't like, but he still is a great president. So I'd like to hang out with him. Jim Gaffigan. He's funny. I think we'd have a great dinner. I love his humor. I think those would be 3 guys to hang out with. It'd be fun.
Great. What's a hobby or interest you have that might surprise people?
I like making videos. If I do something on social media, I make a little video, put some editing to it. I think I'm really creative and all that stuff. But I don't really do anything. I work. Work is my hobby. My family is my hobby. But if I really had a thing I do, I like to make those videos, edit them and put them up on social media. It's kind of cool to do.
One piece of advice to your younger self?
Don't be lazy. I was very lazy as a young man. And for all kinds of reasons, but there's no blame. There's no excuse. I just was lazy. But I missed out on a lot of good things in life because I was lazy. So don't be lazy.
Yeah. And lastly, one piece of advice or wisdom to our listeners on any topic?
Well, this is the year of intentional living. Back to don't be lazy. If you don't like something in your life, own it. Go do something about it. It is just as hard, I'd say harder, to stay a victim in a miserable situation than it will be to take on the things it needs to change to be victorious. I've seen it in my own life. I watched it in my business. I've seen it with my clients. I've watched people around me change their lives through accountability. Don't wait. Figure out what you're not happy with and own it and go do something about it.
Great. Robert Hunt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're so welcome. This has been a great conversation.
And before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners where they can contact you, learn more about your work, or just connect?
Yeah, I'm nobodycaresbook.com is where our book is at. You can buy a copy from us. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and all those places too, online. My personal business website is refdallas, refdallas.com. And the reason I send you to that one is there's where I write articles that I've learned from watching CEOs and business owners. A lot of leadership articles are in there on the blog. Lots of tools. And you can take the satisfaction assessment there too. So refdallas.com is where you'll find me for business.
And to our listeners, if you are curious about your satisfaction levels, take the assessments at Robert's website and see where you can start owning your journey. It is a tool that will help you understand not just where you are satisfied, but where you can hold yourself accountable for improvement. I'd like to close with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi: "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." Thank you for listening to the Pre-Zero Sports Talk podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe to our show. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and make a difference. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.